And I want to go on record saying how proud of you I am, my love. I am so damn proud of you.
You are biased, firstly, but secondly, yes.
Are you a real person? You should have seen the way this hand rolled up. Yes, bitch. Oh,
yeah.
It was just some real
No, but I love you. I love you. And I've been waiting to do this in person. Like, I needed to see your face.
You are back, I see. I knew you couldn't stay away because this is the good stuff, people. The real premium top shelf stuff. Welcome to another season of What Is This Hot Mess? As those of you who have visited us in our little speakeasy before know, I am your favorite bartender, Tiffany Kawuremogo, pouring you a shot of that reality on the rocks. For those of you who haven't stumbled on our fine establishment yet, this podcast is one that kicks it with fire feminists from across the globe to have conversations about the fact that the world is hot trash right now. We are back with season 2, and this time it's a little different. The episodes are shorter and the segments are gone. Those of you who have listened before know I do this mainly to chat on company time and company dime. And this episode is no different because I'm joined by Dr. Tlaleng Mofokeng, who is a personal flex on my Rolodex. One of the people I like to name drop in polite conversation. Like, what? Of course, yes, Dr. T. I do know her. But for those of you who don't know who this person is, and shame on you, Dr. T is, according to the Googles, a South African medical doctor, renowned sexual and reproductive health activist, and best-selling author of the book, Dr. T, A Guide to Sexual Health and Pleasure. As of this episode dropping, she is in the final stretch of her stint serving as the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to health, a job she has been bossing since 2020. In her general vibe, she focuses on universal health access, HIV care, and gender equality, having founded a reproductive health clinic and also held roles in advocacy and policy. She is the sexual superhero that you have been waiting for. So, with my current obsession of misogyny in medicine, it really is my Roman Empire right now, people. Who better to have a chat with than the maverick of medicine herself? The one who eyeballs the world and says, be better, do better. So we must start strong, and we must start from the very beginning.
Very interesting history in terms of anthropology and the history of medicine itself, but also very interesting how and where medicine operates as a science, as a skill. It operates within society, right? It requires the same systems of power and authority to assert itself. And power asserts itself through people it deems with less power, voiceless, powerless. That's why I hate those two words, powerless, voiceless. It already sets, it's the pretext for abuse, for me, on a systems level. But that's how power does, and that's what medicine does. As an authority, it requires to assert itself in that way. And that's why I am always pleading to even how we are taught medicine as medical students, not even just the content, even the method of teaching. They tell us we'll break you to make you. They break us, but they never come back to make us. We were told at first year of medical school, first day, first year, you are creme de la creme. Do you know how many people wanted to be in your positions and could not because you are the smartest, the what of them all? You are not just the cream, baby. You are the creme de la creme. The cream of the cream. What? Huh? And then you walk out with a stethoscope, with that white lab coat, you walk out with them titles. And unless you are truly centered as a human being, we see how people misuse power and authority. We see that. And so it's the same. And medicine is a science. It's a science of practice, and that practice is happening onto humans, onto other humans' bodies. And so no wonder the patriarchy, the misogyny, the capitalism, all of those, the way in which they impact our bodies, our doctors are operating in that same space too. And so medicine is political. Our bodies are political. And unless you have trained doctors and healthcare workers and health providers who understand how in practicing this medicine that I've been studying for 10 years, it's either perpetuating harm, creating harm, or at least I hope you are being intentional about how you are not really causing harm, which is our first sort of oath, do no harm. But what does that actually mean in practice? And I don't think doctors know what do no harm means when you are the person in power and authority and you are the potential harm. It requires a very different kind of looking in the mirror, a very different kind of self-interrogation when you know that by virtue of that signature and the stethoscope, power moves and shifts through me in a particular way. And that do no harm. Maybe those people who came before us knew that we would need to remember that.
As women, we cannot have nice things. We try and help and whammo. People snatch it from us. I'm always complaining that everything is a male-dominated field. Like, how am I being told to get back in the kitchen, but also, in the same breath, all of the Michelin star chefs are men? How? That I must be obsessed with shopping, yet all of the top designers are men. We, as the femmes and the thems, cannot have nice things. And medicine is the same. Throughout history, women played the role of healers, traveling from place to place with their herbs and decent bedside manner, birthing children, alleviating ailments, basically helping people out. I recently learned that the voodoo doll and the pins that are put into it wasn't anything nefarious. It was a way of tracking your medical chart. You came in with a headache, we put a pin in it. Now your headache is gone, we take the pin out. But now your belly aches, so we have to put a pin there. Now it's all, I need to get revenge on my enemies, as a scary, ominous figure shakes bones in the background. Over time, as men have squeezed their way in, women healers have become witches. If you do not know how the birthing canal works or how a fever works, just say so. There is no need for slander, sir. But also, let's go on record, no shade to my witches. There's nothing wrong with being a witch, because shout out to my girlies with their moon water and the sage. We see y'all and we respect your work. Now, also, in ancient Egypt, priestesses of Isis were regarded as physician healers who took their healing powers straight from the goddess Isis herself. Egyptian records show that women studied at the Royal Medical School at Heliopolis, I think it's said, in Cairo, as early as 1500 BCE. If one looks at the various indigenous practices across the world, you saw women were there healing, getting people back on their feet, helping with birthing, and all sorts of things. Women of the Ethaga clan, and I hope I've said this right because it's from Kikuyu traditions and I am Kikuyu, were particularly known as doctors and practitioners of traditional medicine, often providing remedies for various ailments and illnesses. But, and yes, I'm here to blame Europe for all the things, even though shout out to my podcast partners. During the Renaissance, which began in the 17th, 16th century, modern medicine was born, and by the 1700s, medicine had become a respectable profession, and men began to take over the role of midwife and other practitioners such as herbalists.
And women, by the way, were the first people to help others birth, right?
We're not even going to get into that.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes.
No, but actually we must.
And
women were.
Later, the practice of birthing, right? Supporting women through birthing became a technical skill. And men started taking over the industry of doulas and midwifery, right? And because they can't just be like those women, they then had to go and, of course, become doctors, obstetricians, and whatever. But the art of birthing and supporting people spiritually, mentally, physically through the process of pregnancy and birthing and post that was something not sacred as in don't touch it, it's sacred, but sacred as in that we honored the entire being. And we honored the soul and the spirits and everything that was happening in that moment beyond just the medicine and the anesthesia and all of that. And so by pushing women out of obstetrics and gynecology, then elevating it to something only doctors could do, and they then gave orders to midwives. We see now how we are all moving back and back to the practice of having doulas, to women being more empowered and truly autonomous to be participants in their own caregiving through a pregnancy process. Why is it so revolutionary and such an act of rebellion for a woman to say, actually, I would love to have a doula and a midwife present in my birthing and in this antenatal process? Why is that such a revolutionary thing? We need to be asking ourselves that, right? And so there is a history to this work into medicine, and who is seen to be credible as a patient, right? So you're saying, why do doctors take your pain from a 9 to a 6? You are lucky that they will even listen to your pain and not call it hysteria. That's so true. And that's why there's what? Hysterectomy. Because if you take out this womb, these women will be less hysterical one day. And you just give them the hysterectomy.
Women were not only left out of the medical field, but also research. It has been a shit show. One study of assigned female at birth bodies and medical research says that historically, women have been excluded from clinical trials and biomedical research because researchers considered the presence of menstruation rendered the biological processes within the female bodies too variable to glean reliable results, and or because of fears of harming the prospects of a future pregnancy. Thus, most research data has been collected from males and generalized to females, intersex people, transgender people, or gender nonconformists. As someone who is currently on their period right now, I take great offense to this. Fun fact, women in the United States were left out of clinical trials till 1993. That's the same year Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey dropped that fire collabo for the Prince of Egypt. We are not even going to get into the problems around specifically assigned female at birth related medical conditions like fibroids and their friends. This research is grossly underfunded. For example, we know more about male pattern baldness than we do about endometriosis. Also, male Viagra was approved in 6 months, whilst a pill for women and sexual pain took 17 years.
And so that's what happens. So the misogyny is even in the words. It's in the terms we use, right?
Fun fact, we give birth on our backs because of some fellow named Francois Marsekiel. I don't even know if I've said his name right. But anyway, he claimed that the reclining position would be both more comfortable for the pregnant woman and more convenient for the male physician attending to her. More convenient? Sir, what do you mean? I am pushing out a human being. I don't think your convenience should be at the top of the list. Anyway, remember all that stuff that I said where midwives were being pushed out? Well, this is what happens. Their knowledge and wisdom is erased. We are actually meant to give birth squatting, kneeling, or in some sort of other upright position because, gravity. Also something about an enlarging pelvic diameter. According to one medical profession, this practice of birthing on our back is illogical, making birthing needlessly complicated and expensive, turning a natural process into a medical event and the laboring woman into a passive patient.
For a long time, I couldn't do a pap smear. And this is so bad, for me to say, but it's the truth. It's part of my trauma with the system. For a long time, I couldn't do a pap smear. All right?
Why?
That speculum, that silver speculum, that instrument that they use, right? And because of these politics of medicine and the ways in which I interact with the world and of course, systems of power and authority and the deans of health. And there was a time when I really just felt it to be so, it made me so angry. It made me so angry, that whole process, to think about how little research and development has been done for women. If men had to sit for pap smears the way we do it every year, they would have by now developed something that you just put your spit into gum and it tells you if you have cervical cancer or not.
Okay, look, I don't know if you've seen those videos of men trying period cramp machines, but it is brilliant. These men are losing their minds whilst the woman sitting next to them is just scrolling on her phone. It's really good watching. I'd say if you're having a hard day at work, just watch them during your lunch break. It's literally one of my favorite genre of online videos. Do it. Just go and find them. because women's pain is grossly misunderstood and understated. Fun fact, and I told you, this episode, it's like chocked full of them, just so many. It's a hoot a minute, right? Anyway, according to studies, women wait 65 more minutes than men in the ER before receiving pain medication and are more likely to be prescribed sedatives rather than painkillers. Their ailments are often ascribed to anxiety or is seen as psychosomatic. Women are also less likely to receive aggressive treatment for whatever is bothering them.
The ways in which we have to take care of ourselves is not just cumbersome, but it's uncomfortable. It has pain, As doctors, by the way, asking about, the misogyny in medicine. And I do this. I'm an abortion provider. I do insertions of intrauterine devices as a living. That's my life. I work with women's health. I have to justify and write paragraphs in the best English I can find in my cupboard why you would need anesthesia for having your intrauterine device inserted, your IUD.
What?
But a man, it's assumed that, of course, men can be in pain. So part of what it is when men have a vasectomy, analgesia is just part of that. Urologists don't spend half an hour on each patient every day writing to medical aid to justify anesthesia for their vasectomies. The urologists themselves would be in the streets revolting because, what do you mean? How are we making money? But the people, the doctors who are taking care of women, are having to spend not just, the 30 minutes I'm spending with you. I spend another 40 minutes motivating why your treatment has to be dignified, has to be pain-free, why all of this.
Because even that male contraceptive pill that was taken quickly off the market.
We know why.
Apparently they got 5 side effects and they were absolutely
headache,
not.
nausea, unpredictable, sort of mood swing every now and then. And they were like, we're not having this. Our lives are not going to be disrupted like this. But for women, we owe it to the world, honey. You owe it to the world. And so there is a way in which there is, and I've written about this for the UN in a different context, but talking about violent systems, right? And why women are not believed. When we are believed, we are ridiculed. When we are believed, maybe somewhat ridiculed, there's still this denial of what it is that we are saying is the truth. And there's a whole thing around epistemic injustice, right? The idea, and not only that, if you're a black woman, oh my gosh.
Forget about it.
Right? Now you're a black, you're a poor woman, maybe you have a disability, maybe you're from a rural environment. Oh, no one is believing you. In fact, they are questioning why you think you know, right? So the idea of epistemic injustice, this finding of certain people as not credible to know what they know or to relay what they relay or to be a witness of what they say or to even experience the thing that they say they've experienced. We've seen it. And it's as systemic as, for example, sex workers still being criminalized and not being listened to about the harms of the current law. Or someone like Caster Semenya's entire livelihood taken away because some white girl cried because she beat her. She came 10th. She was always going to not win, even if Caster didn't win that race. But, white women tears, they matter for the world. And Caster's entire career was literally blown, decimated. Mm-hmm. At the peak, by the way, she lost everything, not just her ability to run, but to make an income, to have brand deals, to have literal retirement, policy, a plan. Gone. Because she can't be a credible witness. But the white tears that came 10th in the race is so important and so credible that it decimated Caster's entire career. Mm-hmm. It happens in so many different ways. And those are the systems of oppression that we operate within. And so those systems that then say, to be a runner, we need to make sure that your estrogen is a particular level. We need to have done ultrasound and scans of all the women. It's rubbish. It's all of it to try and control this idea of femininity, but also what does fertility look like and who's allowed and not allowed to be fertile.
Health, like everything else, is political.
Why it's important and why it's political is that health is not just about getting to a clinic when you need one. It's also about wellness. It's about longevity. And you can't be well and have longevity if then when you are sick, you can't get screened early. You can't access, definitive treatment and management early. And that your ability to then live without comorbidities, without illnesses that lead to disabilities, if you have a chronic illness, to have that managed well. All of it depends on, unfortunately, where you are born.
As I said at the start of the podcast, Dr. T has a fancy UN job. UN, actually, what was the title in the end? UN Special
Rapporteur on the right of everyone to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health.
Hey.
2020 to 2026. We are wrapping up, Ngoku. Yeah, it's been that long.
6 years.
6 years. It's been that long. Yeah.
I swear we were just ululating at home over it.
Literally.
And
I did my interview, my final interview, like top 5 interview in my house during the first lockdown.
So, Kitty Boos, what is a special rapporteur? I am so glad you asked. According to Wikipedia, a special rapporteur, or independent expert, is the title that the United Nations gives to the independent human rights expert called to report or advise on human rights from a thematic or country-specific perspective. They are in charge of holding inquiries into violations, which means that they are essentially calling people out on their nonsense, an act that doesn't always earn you a lot of friends. If you do your job right, you should have hordes of haters. There are also mission reports and recommendations, and also talking to governments and victims of violations and organizations. It is a big, big job. Back in the day when Tiffy was a sweet, wide-eyed menace in the Pol Sci department, I dreamed of being one of these. Then I met one in real life, and I found out it wasn't just fancy trips and speeches at podiums. It was flames, my guy, flames. It's going and finding the most vulnerable, the ones who are going through it, going into countries that are doing absolute wicked business and asking, hello, what's going on here? The steak dinners and fancy whiskeys are few and far between. So it was like dream deferred hard, which is why we must give those who are in these positions their flowers. Because for a lot of us, hey, we could never.
So when I applied, I knew that I'm applying into an imperfect institution. The UN is not a perfect institution by any matrix. And so for me, it was a matter of how do I best use this transient position as an outsider, because I'm not employed by them to do this. I'm an expert, right? I'm supposed to produce reports for them, do all of the human rights standard setting, do the full thing. How do I utilize this institution, knowing its authority and its power still in the world, to actually elevate the stories and advocate for people who are not vulnerable because they are individuals who made bad decisions, but because systems make them that way? And so the same way that we are, underlying determinants of health, lead to poor health outcomes, delayed healthcare leads to poor outcomes. So there's reasons why, even if you say to a woman, come back for a checkup in 2 months' time, in 8 weeks, even though she has the right information, she loves herself. She also wants to live, but she can't risk being unemployed because she's working in an informal economy. Maybe she does have a job, but she has no labor protections and no sick leave. And when she does have leave, she has to split between herself and maybe her children, right? And so when women then don't come back for checkup, it's very easy to say, women don't care. Women don't care for themselves, And then they'll all come back here with such advanced cancer. But no one pauses to say, what is it about these systems that women cannot actually come back? Because we've done a diagnosis. There's a plan. She understood. Why are they not coming back? And the issues of infrastructure. The roads are bad. If there's a storm for 3 days, we can't cross the river because it's overflowing. And if you've missed your appointment, you've missed your appointment because no one cares, right? If your in-law passes away, guess who has to use their annual leave to go cook in the villages because their in-law has passed away? It's the women. The men waltz in at 5 p.m. if you are lucky, maybe at 2 a.m. halfway through. And so those are the realities of people. And I wanted to bring those realities to those institutions such as the UN, because medicine is not a sterile practice. The right to health, which is a human right, happens in a particular context. It's not a right that's abstract somewhere there. It's one of the most inclusive rights that really takes into account beyond what happens in a consultation in a clinic, in a hospital.
During her tenure, Dr. T stayed booked and busy. Outside of dodging the haters and smacking down the patriarchy, she also wrote some fire reports. and got muddled in some court cases. Law and Order, SVU style.
So the court cases I've chosen to participate in as a third-party intervener, bringing a human rights perspective, a right to health perspective to particular court cases has also been important. It's cases where normally perhaps people wouldn't think are important enough, right, or are not groundbreaking enough. But when you have an intersectional understanding of how life works, when you have real testimonies of real people and you bring that to the court and you show the court that human rights, because believe it or not, we still have to do this with the judges, show them that human rights are not just things to articulate and to be like, oh, the state must aspire to. No. It's not an aspiration. These are real things that they must realize, they must put budgets and they must put policies in action to protect that right. It's not just a hypothetical perpetual aspiration. And so that's what I wanted to do, to show how racism as well and coloniality as well, whether historical or in the current context, because we often say we are neo-colonial. We're not. We're still very colonized, my dear sisters and heathens and brothers and others. We are not in any neo-colonial state of any kind. But okay, for the liberals, fine, neo-colonialism. That in fact, those are still very harmful. That those systems and that harm finds itself and maps itself onto our bodies even today. And then merging human rights and those politics and understanding of that history to shape where we can go. It was very important for me. So I brought politics from day one into this mandate.
And 100% the politics were brought full throttle. Pro max, as the kids would say. Wait, did I do that right? Let me just check my notes.
I feel that everyone must tell me if I did what I said I would do, because I'm too far in it now, I think, to be properly objective for a conversation like this. But like on a subjective, very biased manner, I think I did more than I said I would do because the time demanded that, right? And I did go back to my first report to the General Assembly on my strategic priorities. And I read that and I was like, did I do what I promised? At least what I thought I would do? Because the time was very different when I was appointed to now, in any case, right?
In so many ways, hey?
Literal and other ways, yeah. So that report on violence, and I know what you're looking for. It's the non-binary approach to violence. That's what it was titled.
Thank you. Like she's looking at me, looking at my phone, being like, okay, if I can just scroll
it's
quickly,
violence and the right to health, right? And a non-binary approach.
Okay, don't be judging me. Sometimes I do the research afterwards. Sometimes during the podcast. Now, the exact name of the report is Violence and its Impact on the Right to Health. The report has an emphasis on the violence experienced by women, children, and non-binary people, and on conflict-related sexual violence and structural violence. In it, this magical being that is Dr. T adopts a substantive equality approach and analyzes violence and its impact on the right of everyone to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health within an intersectional, anti-racist, and anti-coloniality framework.
That's what I do with all my UN reports. I come up with a title that's very obvious, very straight to the point. And then it's in the analysis where you really see the complexity of what seems like a very simple, straightforward title actually is about. And the complexity of the analysis is important because it brings forward stories that are often ignored because we don't see people as credible witnesses to their lives. So I'm very aware that in writing the reports, I am contributing to undoing epistemic injustice.
And in this report, she truly did. The report says, in seeking to end and respond to violence, she proposes an intersectional, non-discriminatory, and gender non-binary approach that understands gender-based violence as a phenomenon that includes matters of sexuality and violations against persons on the basis of their real or imputed sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics. She underscores that a non-binary approach to gender and gender-based violence is well-rooted in international human rights law.
So that report was particularly important because we often hear of violence as interpersonal violence. A person hit someone else. A man hit a woman, right? And she's forever the victim in that story. And every time we talk the violence, trigger warning, whatever else was happened to her, she is the center of that particular narrative, not the perpetrator. So we're continually disempowering her by centering the violence and not the person who violated her. So it's whatever she does or doesn't do, the victim laid charges, right? So if she lays charges, people are like, oh yeah, it was a serious thing. If she doesn't, like, this one was playing, right? Never what the perpetrator did. So already, just from how the media reports on violence, I already had a question mark to be like, surely we can do better. On a right to health perspective, it's important to us to understand as health and care workers, when someone walks in and says, X has been done to me, or I'm a victim of whatever, to believe that person and believe in them. And we all have know the struggle, like #believe her, we know that. But what does it mean in practice? In practice, it means when someone walks in and they say, I've been raped, you can't, trigger warning, sorry. You can't even say, as healthcare workers, but how when you look like a boy? Because I've heard that, right? How when you look like a boy? Right? And so, but why are you complaining? They are your husband. How? They paid lobola for you, so they must always be able to have sex with you, right? People have heard those things. And so why I was writing it in that way is that we also have to think beyond what we think we know about who a victim of violence is, but also who's a potential perpetrator of violence. Because children are not believed intentionally because the boyfriend of the mother is a perpetrator. Suddenly, because the boyfriend of the mother, they can't be a perpetrator. You see? So even listening to children requires us to see them, that they could be potential victims. And so how do we do that? Understanding how the definition of violence works and victims of systems that are beyond interpersonal violence was also important, because if you are a person with a disability and every day you must fight with people at the shopping mall to let you park at the disability parking, because when you get out, there's no wheelchair that follows you, right? So you must perform a particular level of physical, look at me, I'm disabled, to be believed that you are disabled and that you should be getting particular, society must be engineered in a way that helps you navigate it, right? Even disability has a particular way that it looks, that causes harm to other people who have particular kinds of disability. And that is in itself is a kind of a systemic kind of a violence, right? People will talk up more and more and more and more now. People are writing about ableism and all of that. And I'm talking about these now and bringing them within the UN in a human rights context to say people are not asking you for favors when they're asking for the ramp to a particular incline so it's not so steep, so that, they can actually wheel themselves in their own wheelchair around the spaces they need to. They're not asking for a favor that the ramps must be wide enough, right? Or at the rural clinic, when it rains, the two stones that used to connect the clinic and the road have, they went away with the rain. Now there's nothing. Now the wheelchair users can't even make that one jump, from the one on the one side of the road to the clinic. Like it's a whole thing. And so talking about violence and violent systems above and beyond interpersonal violence in that report was really important. But it was also important because it was happening in the context where transgender rights are being attacked globally, even within the UN. You have the rights of intersex persons also experiencing a lot of pushback. There were many court cases at the time as well that were trying to take away the rights to abortion, for example, right? And I was talking about those as systemic structural violations as well, and how when the law participates and works in particular ways itself is an enabler or a generator of harm. And how then do we use human rights to respond to this?
In the report, Dr. T argues that systemic or institutional violence refers to institutional practices, laws, or procedures that adversely affect groups or individuals psychologically, mentally, culturally, economically, spiritually, or physically. This type of violence has its origins within or outside the state and is a major obstacle for the realization of the right to health. The report defines structural violence as a subtle and quite often invisible form of violence normalized through laws, policies, and the institutionalization of certain practices that have their roots in the legacies of colonialism, racism, apartheid, and structural socio-economic inequalities.
If parents and caregivers are stuck in taxis and buses trying to get from CBDs to where they're living, right? And you can't just walk into any clinic and be like, listen, my bus was delayed, or I had to go home quickly to feed the kids, do the washing, and then come to... There's no clinic that's open after 4. So where are you getting your services if you're a person who at 5 o'clock knocks off and only gets home at 8, right? How are you getting your health? How are you getting your contraception? How are you getting your screening? How are you getting your information? So all of it is related and connected. And the third one was talking about the space in which we share together, right? The social contract at the time had been decimated by COVID, right? And the rules of association, you can't go there, you can't go there, you can't do this. But in literal terms, it's very unsafe for many people to be outside, right? A lot of violence happens when you're trying to get a transportation, when you're trying to go from the train to your house, when you're trying to walk from school to your house, from the workplace. A lot of women are working outdoor, whether it's informal trading, whether it's sex work, it doesn't matter what it is. Many of us are walking and working outdoor. And it's very unsafe. And people coming up with whistles. Like if a woman feels unsafe, she must blow the whistle, and then others blow the whistle, and then the community, mobilizes. Others bang pots. Others have come up with all sorts of apps to be like, SOS, I'm in trouble. Like the lengths we go to just to try and survive daily life is just too much. And we don't see that as violence. We think we are being innovative. That's why I hate things that are responding to GBV as innovation, submit innovative ways to respond to violence. The fact that I must think of a way to survive cannot be innovation. I refuse. And surviving violence that can be prevented. And it's still me, ne? They're not saying men stop raping and stop abusing. They are saying, young people innovate, come up with an idea. And so for me, I was saying, let's be careful to the extent to which we victim blame in how we think of policy. We shame and blame even how we then think of programming and how to respond. Because I think in the absolute desperation to respond, we are seeing a lot of things, man. We are seeing a lot of things. And this is not just, a conversation about, or at least this point, it's not about individual women who show up every day for other individual women. We do that anyway for each other. I'm talking about state-funded, sanctioned programs, ideas and policies that you think, is anyone thinking here? Is anybody thinking, Because we will always show up for each other. We will always, whether or not the government comes or doesn't come, guys, we are always showing up for each other. But that also gets weaponized, right? That also itself has to be packaged in a particular way that's seen to be palatable, and therefore it will get funding. So I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot. And I've sat in meetings where, funding decisions were being made. And I'm like, but surely that's not how we're going to go about this. And unfortunately, maybe I've seen too much, but it frustrates me a lot. And so a lot of my reports like that one will always have a plan around good governance. We'll always have something about stewardship of public resources. We'll always say something about, like a national program and how comprehensive and well thought it should be, but that the people who are most impacted by the policy work that we do must be centered, but they must have meaningful participation in these processes, and that their participation is consequential.
One of the things that you witness again and again is people on the front lines doing the absolute most. We praise them for their strength and resilience and how they show up for us, and we give them an award and a pat on the back. But sometimes we do not acknowledge what it takes. I asked Dr. T how she held this high-stress, high-stakes role along with everything else that was happening around her.
Nearly died. Literally, I was in hospital, I think, for 6 weeks at some point.
I do remember there was a time we were talking and you're like, in fact, and I was just like, I'm sorry, what?
It was so random that you actually messaged at the time, because that's what I was like fighting for my life.
Yes.
And I think you were so shook. Like,
because I was just like on a, hey girl, hey.
No, it was, and I'm glad you did, because not many people know these things, and I don't speak about them in that way, because I think in this particular role, it had to be about the work and the rights holders, right, on whose behalf I think I'm doing this. I never wanted to make this in any way about how hard it is to do it. Because if it's that hard for me to do it, imagine trying to live through the kinds of violations and the testimonies that I was hearing. So I was very aware not to make this about that. But there was a point where someone said to me, comrade, you are no use to us dead.
This is true.
And I was like, okay, okay, yeah. And so there was that sort of need, right, to remind myself that neither me nor my mother are the systems of extractive capitalism and racism and colonialism. We didn't colonize nobody. The fact that I am just me, and I really am just me, I think you guys need to understand how just normal and just a normal person that I am to be doing such serious things. I'm just a girl from Kwakwa. Like, I really, really am. And I had to remind myself that this is not for me to take on and finish and fix and whatever. I'm a human being who's in a particular space in time in the history of this world and humanity, who has particular skills and right now particular access, all which will change and go anyway. And I'm only to be my best. And if my best is enough to save one person, praise God.
As the kids on the internet like to say, I'm just a girl. Oh my gosh. Let me sit for a minute and pontificate for free here. Look, this one is not going to cost you extra. In my wanderings around the social justice / human rights realm, I've seen a lot of people who feel like they have to die on the hill of their work and only wake up when they are a shell of a person and are like, the fuck? No, this cannot be me anymore. Look, this work is important and so necessary, but to completely dismantle yourself for it is noble, kind of, but it also has a good dose of ego. You cannot do it all. You cannot be the superhero to save the whole system. And much as you want to, much as you think it is your hero's journey, it really isn't completely on you. As Dr. T's people told her, you are no use to us, dead comrade. You are not the only one who can do this work. You are not the only one doing this work. And many people have come before you. Many people stand with you today, and many people will come after you. So close that laptop, beloved. Log off for a minute, switch off your phone, go touch some grass. It really will all be okay.
That so many other people get to benefit from my advocacy and my activism, that I remain deeply humbled forever. But there was a moment where my comrades were like, you are not used to us dead. We need you alive. And to be alive, I needed to pause. I needed to listen to the body. I needed to just take that mental health break. I mean, and I say this as someone who's very fully aware of words and meaning, but self-harm became a really important thing for me because I really had like moments of like literal like salacious ideas of how to even do it. Part of maybe my own history, right, of growing up and being born in an apartheid segregated area and growing up as a child there and then being an adult and, you know, experiencing a democratic South Africa, but also not feeling still truly free, right? And carrying the bitterness and the anger and the rage of that child through my adulthood. I think all of that rage as well had to go somewhere. And so there is that as well, right? My own residual anger and rage at my own experience. And then the gratitude of, damn, I did make it and I am here. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the children of this world don't have to go through what at least I had to survive. And so there was a lot happening and there's still a lot happening. And then being that close to an institution like the UN that has the power and the expectation and the authority to do a lot, and then live through a genocide where you have world leaders who are passive. They literally chose passiveness. They imposed it on themselves, made me even more furious. And I think it was all of that then merging into one space, into one body, where I just could not take it anymore. And then as an expert, as a person, as a doctor, feeling let down by the systems that are supposed to even have my back. Because if I'm going to risk it all out there, you better have my back. Because I'm saying things you wish you could say, but you know I'm saying them. And you know, even you can't tell people that I wish I could say those things, but you know I'm saying it. The least you could do is have my back. So to be reminded by organizations and by systems that you are a nothing, that in fact the labor of Black women will always be seen as disposable and dispensable. So I'm now at full circle. I came in full of rage and furious about how these institutions were never for us. And I want people to understand that. When I say black people, you are on your own. Internalize what that is. Because until you internalize this, you're going to think it's a slogan and you'll never strategize about how to change that. We are on our own. Because I'm now 6 years later, I'm about to get off this train in July. My tenure ends. And I think the universe is full of jokes. I think our black feminine ancestors are really full of jokes because they said, girl, you thought you're done with the rage? Here's some more. So I'm more fired up
than when you went in.
than when I went in.
Yeah.
I'm less liked, which is fabulous for me, than when I went in because it means I did the right things. And so I feel very, very accomplished. And I think I'm going to look back, in a few weeks and look back with a sense of, I think, pride in what was achieved by the mandate. I gave it far more than it needed to be given, but that's what me. When I commit, I commit. I don't do things 30% of my time. There's no such a thing.
Full butt cheeks in.
I go full in, and I look forward to whatever the next phase of life will bring. But it's clearly more fighting because I'm just more furious and angry and raging as ever. But I like that because I don't know. Within the face of everything we have in the world that we have to face, I don't know how I could be anywhere else. So being full of rage and being angry feels like exactly how I need to be.
Oh my gosh, I cannot even tell you how many more medical things I wanted to put in this episode, but I had to hold myself back. If you have a minute, go onto social media and just go down the rabbit hole of misogyny in medicine. It will enrage you. But because I do not have as many hours in the day as Beyonce, I have to wrap this up. But this is just part 1. In part 2, I say goodbye to Dr. T, the special expert, and I say hello to Dr. Tlale, the sexual pleasure expert. Check out the show notes for all sorts of links and things that are helpful because we are here for a smart time, not just a good time. So I'm going to try and squeeze in everything I couldn't in the above because there was just so much. As usual, shout out to the Global Unit for Feminism and Gender Democracy of the Heinrich-Böll Foundation that is hosting this podcast, and my mix and mastering team magicians that they are, Rachel Wamoto and Sheldon Mute, for that post-apocalyptic production. Thank you also to the newest person who is up in this business, Cam I Will Fight You Smith, for being a megamind and giving me some dope research. Till the next episode, give birth squatting in a daisy field. Train as a doula and help your friendship group bring in the next generation. Ask your male gynecologist when the real doctor is coming and then look around for a woman. Because you know what? It's all chaos anyway, and this is not the apocalypse we signed up for.